Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a unusual Thursday afternoon recording of the Sticks and the Six podcast, episode 201. I'm your host, Andrew Forbes, here with my co-host, Peter Barricchini. And the it's kind of good that we waited. Stanley Cup was awarded to the Florida Panthers. We're going to get into that in just a little bit here. But before we get into all the fun and the off-season news that's ahead of us, Peter, how you doing this week, buddy?
Yeah, it's going great, man. Like you said, now we're getting to those kind of dog days where it's now like a little bit of a lull in between. You're going to hear some news, you're going to hear some rumors. There's the NHL draft, and then free agency is kicking off right after that. So now this is now where the fun begins in terms of like, all right, season's in the rearview mirror right now. It's already seems like the planning's already starting for next year. Everyone wants to try and dethrone the Florida Panthers right now, back-to-back championships. And I want to bring this up with you too. We've already probably talked about this previously before about the Tampa Bay Lightning, how they won back-to-back, the Pittsburgh Penguins, how they won back-to-back. And the term dynasty is kind of a loose term right now because of the fact that you need to at least have 3, 4, 5 championships in order to be considered that dynasty. Honestly, considering where we are with the cap and everything, we've already talked about Pittsburgh possibly being a dynasty with their back-to-backs, Tampa Bay. You got to throw the Florida Panthers in there. I mean, what they just did right now is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, as much as we hate it because, we really wanted to see the Stanley Cup come home. Like everyone was going behind Edmonton, rallying around Edmonton, but Florida's just too good and the better team won. And I know we still got our own thoughts about the whole Stanley Cup thing itself too, but yeah, I think it's ought to consider the Florida Panthers a dynasty right now because they've actually made the Cup final 3 years in a row and won 2. So,
who was it? Was it Mark Lazarus or anyways? One of the Lazaruses on should we call him Lazari? One of the Lazaruses on
plural.
X. Yeah, they tweeted out that let's remind ourselves that a dynasty is having won 3 times, not going to the final 3 times. A dynasty is a team that doesn't give up any sort of power within a league. It's I think it's open for interpretation because, like you mentioned, when you go back to prior to the cap, prior to there's a limitation on what you
different
can spend.
Eras. That's
yes,
the thing.
Exactly. So it's an interesting subject. It's definitely something that's open for debate. I think it's a great debate to have. And I would agree. Like you've been to the final 3 straight seasons. You've won the last 2. It's a team that, you heard Sam Bennett say it. There's a closeness in this team. They spend the majority of their waking hours they're spending together. And we'll get into that in a little bit and how it pertains to the Maple Leafs, but it's it's definitely a solid debate and something that I'd be curious to hear other people's thoughts on. Are the Florida Panthers considered a dynasty, considering they just finished their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final and their 2nd straight Stanley Cup win? It's certainly a question mark that we can put out to the listeners and the viewers. I want to before we get into the hockey talk, I want to tell you this. We were supposed to record yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And my day was thrown off. Had to drive my wife to the airport in Toronto at 3:30 in the morning because. So look, I'm an overthinker. I'm a catastrophic thinker. I go worst case scenario, choose your own adventure, get the details in there. Going through a lot of help to try and solve that part of myself.
You basically wing it every time.
Yeah, like it's like I could think of the most mundane situation and it could go that route and I'd be like, oh, well, that's boring. And then I'm like catastrophic thinking, let's go down this rabbit hole and create every detail. And all of a sudden we've got a story. So my wife just recently flew out to California for a yoga retreat with her sister. Very exciting. They get a chance to kind of get away and
awesome.
Recharge and refuel. And obviously we know the political picture that's going on in California right now. So catastrophic thinking comes in. Anyways, she gets a call Tuesday night. She flies out Wednesday morning from London. She gets a call Tuesday night that her flight was canceled because of mechanical issues on the plane.
Oh God.
And catastrophic thinking takes over. Anyways, right away I was like, "Don't worry, I will drive." This was like we're talking 11:30 at night, okay? 11:30, kids are in bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, "You know what? I'll drive you guys to Toronto at 3 a.m." I like doesn't matter. I stayed up till 1, drove them in for 3. Anyways, they got there safely, thank God. But
Awesome.
it's just that's why my day was thrown off yesterday, and catastrophic
Takes
thinking
a
is
toll,
not
but
it's not a
yeah.
great thing. It's not a great thing. Anyways, we're here today, episode 201. Big shout out to our longtime listener and friend of the show, Patty Mafia. There's a change in the name. Patty
Changing
Mafia,
the
how's it
name right
going?
there.
Andrew and Peter, hello, welcome,
How's
welcome,
it going,
welcome.
man?
We got Eric Islas on YouTube. Marner to Vegas. What y'all think?
Ooh.
Yeah, we're gonna get into them. You know what? Let's just forget it. We'll do league news later. Let's get right into the
League
Marner
news can
talk
wait.
because
League
this
news
yeah
can
this
wait.
is this is the conversation that everyone wants to know. Leafs off season is going to be surrounded by this Marner to Vegas talk. Um, so let's kick it off with that. I don't. So there's a lot of questions that need to be unfolded in this situation. I don't think we talked a couple weeks ago about how there could be this sign and trade and possibly we could see Marner the Leafs get something from Marner going to free agency. That's out the window. That's gone.
Time
Andy
has passed for that.
Strickland, yeah, Andy Strickland
Yeah.
out in St. Louis. He reported that Marner will not be playing for the Leafs next season. He's going to sign with a new team. It's now reported that the Leafs and Marner's side have not had any solid negotiations all season long.
Both EF and Myrtle have reported that ever since the season ended, there's been absolutely no contact.
Yes, and all season long there hasn't been a lot of conversation about extension. And one of the biggest questions that I've seen raised over the last, let's say, 2 weeks is where is all of this animosity coming from towards the Maple Leafs? The Leafs, I mean, really, realistically, look at it. You've got a winger who, over let's say 70 playoff games, has, I believe it's 17 goals, and he's looking for 14 million. One of the things brought up was you've got 17 goals over 70 playoff games. That's basically a full season. Are you paying $14 million to a guy who's going to score 17 goals over 70 games?
And we know Mitch is a playmaker too. We know
Absolutely.
He's a playmaker, but it's like even Patrick Kane was like one of the greatest playmakers like in recent years. Coming in, at least he was still good for at least 25, 30 goals. Even in the playoffs, he's still at least pushing like that envelope of like maybe more than that consistently. So it's like, if you are willing to get paid as a top winger, you got to start producing as one.
Yeah,
at
absolutely.
some point. And like you mentioned too, the animosity, like I don't know where exactly that's coming from.
The Leafs have given him everything he's wanted. I mean, Dubas basically folded and gave him exactly what he wanted when he held out last time. It's
the words right out of my mouth. Yeah.
And
you got your big payday last time.
Absolutely. They didn't force him into a trade. They gave him his no trade clause. They never moved him prior to that kicking in. And then when it did kick in, they asked him a couple times to waive it for 2 possible trades. Yeah. And nothing came of it. And he said no, which was his right.
It is his right. Yeah.
So the animosity is the biggest question mark. So to get back to the question by Eric, and he throws another good point. Send Barbashev for a pick and clear $5 million in cap space. Barbashev's a guy I'm not sure that Vegas wants to give up. Like he has all the intangibles. That said,
he fits so well into their top 6.
Yeah, but since Vegas has come into this league, they don't give a shit about who they move out. Let's not forget they drafted Nick Suzuki. They moved him for Pacioretty. Most of their first round draft picks have moved on, and they really don't care who they move to get the pieces that they want. So is it possible that they move Barbashev? Maybe. There's a lot of talk around Vegas. There's a lot of talk around Anaheim. Anaheim just took on Kreider's contract. Dallas, who'd they just re-sign? They just re-signed somebody today.
Duchesne.
Now they have less than $500,000 in cap space. So unless they move a major piece, Dallas seems to be out of the question. I'm really, really, really starting to lean towards the three that I told you last week in San Jose, Utah, and
Anaheim.
Anaheim. Those are the
Yeah.
three that I really see as a fit. But you raised a great point in a recent article that you wrote as well, and that's he wants to win somewhere.
Just came out today, by the way. If you want to
Yes,
have a little bit of a read, yeah.
he wants to win somewhere. San Jose and Anaheim don't seem like those two spots. Utah, I think, are
Knocking on the
closer to
door.
being they're
Mhm.
closer to being competitive than either of the other teams. That said, with the cap going up, there's so many question marks on where he could land. I mean, look at the cover of this episode. We've got San Jose, we've got Utah, we've got Carolina, who's apparently going to go out there and offer him 14 million. Um, am I sad to see him go? Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Anytime you draft a player of that magnitude and give him the opportunity to grow and develop within your organization, to see him go, it sucks, and it's hard when he has that kind of chemistry with an Austin Matthews. At the same time, I think he's going to stain his legacy with the way that he goes, and
Mhm.
hence the title of this episode, hockey's version of the decision. This is playing out so much like the LeBron James decision when he went took his talents to South Beach. Like, I'm waiting for Marner to just like, because the report is that he's hosting teams. He's offered the Maple Leafs a meeting, which I
Like,
think
who do
is
you think?
such a
I was about to say, who do you think you are at this point? Connor McDavid?
man.
Not
The
even close to
fact,
that point. At least McDavid has made the finals 2 years in a row. But like you trying to feel like you are God's gift to Earth kind of thing.
when
That
I
that's it's getting a little. This is why Maple Leaf fans are like saying, you know what, we really don't care if you sign it or you go.
yeah, like when I saw that he offered the Leafs a meeting spot, I was like, what a kick in the dick. I
Yeah,
would tell him to go fuck himself and see you later. Like, at this point,
like
after you've given
like
him
you mentioned
everything that
before,
he's wanted.
they've like sorry to cut over you, but like you mentioned
That's right.
before, they've given him everything that they possibly could have wanted, right? So it's like I don't understand why. Again, we're talking about this whole animosity thing. Why is this happening right now? Is it because they asked him to waive his no trade clause? But then again, it's I don't know. I'm just really perplexed by everything. And you know what? Good on Tree for not budging, playing not necessarily playing hardball, but saying like even at this end of year presser, basically says we want to change our DNA. If you want to be a part of the solution, we will keep you.
Mm-hmm.
If Mitch Marner is not going to be a part of the solution, it just basically shows where he is at. And even you saw with his play, especially in that Florida Panthers series. And even in my post, I mentioned games 1 and 4 in the playoffs. Mitch Marner is like an absolute star-studded player. And that's where you would want to give that $14 million to. But when you look at his numbers for games 5 to 7, he only has 10 points in 23 games and 1 goal. That
Yeah.
to me shows that you are not capable of not just, and I even mentioned this too. If you go over to another team and you still have those poor results in those big moment games, that legacy that you left in Toronto is still going to follow you even to a quiet market team because of the fact that you're getting paid to produce. And if you're not producing, everyone else is going to fall in line and be like, well, what are we paying you for? Fans are going to say the same thing like we're saying here. What are we paying you for? What are we going to pay you for? So that to me is a little that was my thought process with that article, because of the fact that if you go somewhere, yeah, you want to win, but you're years away from winning. But also, if what you've done in Toronto follows you here, it's everything's going to come back full circle from him. There's going to be a lot of scrutiny no matter what. And also, I just want to point out with Eric too, like he mentions Vegas as a option. Again, if they do go Vegas, or if Vegas does want to sign him, they have $9 million left in cap space. They're gonna have to clear out a lot of or some space. Obviously, Barbashev would kind of be that name.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't mind Nicholas Waugh as another player to come this way, because he kind of feels like that, Craig Berube type player. But also, if they're looking to give up prospects and they're winning to win right now too, I'm looking at Thomas Yoronen from like in their system. He had a massive season for the Kingston Frontenacs. I think 90 points this year, 63 games. He's 6 feet, 190 plus pounds. Like, this is a guy that kind of like feels like, hey, you know, he's got some potential right there. And this was kind of like his second season in North America too. So he had like a really good jump too. If the Maple Leafs want to try and work a deal, be like, okay, we'll take you, we'll make a deal, but Mitch Marner's not involved. Let's say you're signing Mitch Marner, you want to clear cap space, okay, we'll help you out, but you're gonna have to make it a little bit sweet for us in that case because Vegas would be desperate to try and sign him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of potential, but Vegas, they just don't strike me as the team that needs a Mitch Marner right now.
That too, and also would he fit their style? Because
Yeah,
Vegas, they're
big
a
bodied,
hardworking team.
heavy. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go back to the no sweat yelling on the ice in what was it, game 5, game 6,
Mm-hmm.
where everyone was making fun of Mitch for not having a sweaty hair on his head. Patty, possibly Marner not signing trade, says, the character, I think Andy Strickland wrote something else after he reported that he's not coming back to Toronto and said, like, this is not about money, this is about, a fresh start, whatever. I think what he ends up signing and where is going to tell us a lot about what it's about. I'm not ready to sit back and say it's not about money.
And again, if he signs 13, 14 million.
Yeah, and eventually, you know what? Eventually, it's going to come out. If he leaves Toronto, eventually, it's going to come out what the Leafs have offered him, and it like, it'll be interesting to see where that the negotiations went. Albeit there hasn't been much negotiations according to reports, so it'll be interesting to see how this all breaks down. But more is going to come out. It always does. We always find out more from, like, Elliot Friedman and everything. So, which we should jump on the fact that, like, what was it, last Wednesday we broke down that Mitch Marner was going out west, and Elliot Friedman reported on Friday on 32 Thoughts.
I find it very funny that you're inside. Not so. God, what's the term again? Outsider, insider.
My
outside insider.
Yeah.
There we go. Like, you have like all these like the tidbits of info, and then all of a sudden everybody else starts to pick up on it. Like, even me, like, I know we mentioned about this too, like in our little chat or like in our side like chat or whatever. Like, it kind of feels like I didn't even know that Mitch Marner and Shea Theodore were part of a deal. I just thought that, it would be a great fit. Toronto needs a defenseman. Mitch Marner could be traded for that. They said no, and all of a sudden everyone is still talking about that. And I wrote that last year.
Yeah.
So it's like, where like, obviously I didn't probably have a whole lot of insider information, but I not to toot my own horn, but I came up with that kind of proposal. You already had that info, and then all of a sudden everyone else is jumping all over it, kind of thing. So I think we need to give a little bit of recognition out there,
Absolutely. I'm not trying to take anybody's job or anything like that, but it's nice for like a small time podcast when we get a little bit
That's
break,
true.
a little to give us a little shout out on the 32 Thoughts podcast, but
just a little hat tip.
We'll see. That's right. Patty and Eric, you guys have a great conversation going on about the difference between tax-free states and and taxed income tax states. There's a major,
welcome.
Yeah. There is a major difference. But I think it's funny how Gary Bettman's going full political and just trying to shift the conversation towards more like the LTIR stuff, which is also a big problem. We're going to get into that in a sec here, but there's multiple issues here with the league and how it functions and the way that it does offer advantage to other teams. They're going to sit there as a league and say no, it does not offer any difference. Is there more opportunity in Toronto to maybe pick up outside income? Absolutely. But it still doesn't make up the millions that you're missing out on. Like, I mean, look at JT and the CRA battle that he's going on for his signing bonus that he earned from Toronto. It's just it's insanity.
Apparently, there's a little update on that. Apparently, it's been like paused. So I think it may be a small win for JT right there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Anyways, I'm just reading through your comments here. Really, Bubba Jameson, he might go to Edmonton.
I doubt that.
Yeah, no, their focus right now is signing McDavid and making sure
and
that
Bouchard, and they're
he
also
doesn't
giving
walk.
$4 million to Trent Frederick as well, which is another bad contract in itself.
Terrible,
So I I
terrible
I just
contract.
I saw that, and the comments are like, and this is why the Edmonton Oilers won't go far, because they're giving out these terrible contracts to bottom six players.
Yeah,
Like, your main situation right now is to try and address goaltending, because you're not going any farther with Stuart Skinner or Calvin Pickard as your goaltenders for a Stanley Cup. There's no way. And I just want to point out that the reasons why Edmonton lost that Stanley Cup were the main reasons why I had them out in the first round. No way they should have gotten to this point with that kind of goaltending and defense. It was a miracle, but lo and behold, that was the main issue. And we talk about the Maple Leaf Stars not getting it done. I mean, after the first two games, Connor and Leon were very, very quiet. Like, they could not get anything going. So if we think we have it bad here with our Stars not getting it done, Edmonton have two of the top three players in the league right now, and they couldn't get anything by Bobrovsky or even past the Florida Panthers defense.
yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. Fazilla, McJesus coming to Toronto. Um,
Dare
the
to dream.
reports, yeah, it's definitely a pipe dream, and maybe like when he's well past his prime, and the Leafs are in that get the older players again, like they did with like Robertson and Leach and Glenn Wesley and all them. Maybe at some point, but like there's reports out there that he's already voiced his interest in staying in Edmonton, and that it's just the determining factor is now going to be like whether it goes 7-8 years versus a 3-4 year contract, and that 3-4 years, maybe see what they do, and then he makes another decision past that. Also, the cap's going to be hugely up in the next 3 to 4 years,
And
so
also,
that
if they
could be
get a
a deciding
goalie,
factor as well.
if they get a goalie too, I mean, obviously, I think that's the one thing they need to address this year. If they could find an
Absolutely.
absolute like starter, like there was even reports about like Edmonton contemplating about going after John Gibson, but John Gibson didn't want to
He
share the net
didn't
with
want to
Stuart
go.
Skinner.
Yeah.
Then again, at this point, looking in hindsight, it kind of felt like they needed John Gibson more than they needed Stuart Skinner. And I think if I was John Gibson going in there and even seeing Stuart Skinner all year, I kind of felt confident that you could probably steal the starter role from him and you could have been the guy. So now
Yeah.
if they circle back and be like, hey, we're not happy with the goaltending tandem, John, you're going to be the guy. We are going, or call Anaheim and say, listen, we want to get something done. We want to make this guy the starter regardless.
But if you're John Gibson, you want to stay in Anaheim and be a bottom feeding team and share the net with Lucas Dostal?
That's the thing. You're already losing that starter role to him. Why
Like
not
that,
go somewhere else?
yeah, that report made zero sense to me. I think like it was just it anyways, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So
Side
really
note.
really on
Yeah.
the Marner front, there's not a ton of new news out there. There's still a lot of speculation. The biggest news is that he's going to be hosting teams for and this could go well past July 1st. There's a lot of belief that it's not going to happen July 1st, so don't hold your breath.
Could be
This could be
about 4 to
something
5
that,
days at least.
yeah, where he's going to be sitting down and talking to teams and maybe visiting some places and seeing what's best for his family. And then he's just going to continue to kick Toronto in the dick until he makes his final decision. And if I swear to God, if he hosts like some video on his like social platforms and is like, I'm taking my talents somewhere,
Anaheim.
I swear to God, I will burn this signed Marner jersey on my wall, and like I'll burn it while it's on the wall. Like
Oh, man.
I will be livid if he makes this the decision. Like that's forget inviting Toronto for
An interview. That's the
an
biggest
interview. That will be
punch
the
to the gut
biggest.
ever.
Yeah, your legacy will forever be stained,
You
forever
know, it'd
as
be
as
even
a human
worse.
being.
I mean, and our fellow colleague at the Hockey Writers, Jim, wrote about this, staining Marner's legacy, about the, not waiving his no trade clause to Carolina. Don't count Carolina out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're a puck possession style team. I don't know if Marner's going to thrive under Brendan Moore's system, because he's basically a coach that wants accountability too. But at the same time, they would probably have the money to give Mitch what he wants. And if he did not waive it in, March, he could easily just sign there and make things even worse, being like, okay, well, they expressed interest in me. Okay, I'm not going to waive it, but I'll still sign with them after, just to screw you guys over kind of thing. So let's not forget about Carolina, because I think Carolina is still one of those underrated names and one of those top teams that could still technically have that cap space to go after and sign a big name like him.
Yeah, keep in mind too that there is some consideration that they still want to sign Brent Burns, potentially re-sign Brent Burns.
Yeah.
Also Logan Stankoven, his RFA contract, his contract, his 3-year entry level is up after the 25-26 season, so they'll need to re-sign
So
him.
he's going to need a new so maybe they better second guess themselves.
Yeah, although the cap will go up, I mean, if they can't afford suddenly to sign Stankoven, there's the potential that maybe there's an offer sheet when Stankoven becomes an RFA after the 25-26 season. So something to think about ahead of it. Great stat here by Patty as well. 6 years in a row, a Florida team has made it to the East Final. Goes back to this whole state for tax-free idea. Again, the league's going to try and shove that under the rug as much as they can. But let's go back to the profit sharing, where the reason that Edmonton Oilers were kept in the league was because the Toronto Maple Leafs had to share some of their profit. They're one of the richest teams. Eric, I agree. Stankoven is a beast. Anyways, enough of this Marner talk. If it goes down as the decision, we're gonna have a lot of conversation around it.
We already expressed our thoughts, but we're gonna have even more thoughts about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, since we're on the Leafs, we'll stick with the Leafs for the time being. There's a lot of conversation around, or there has been a lot of conversation around Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand. Sam Bennett obviously won the Conn Smythe Trophy. His value just went up. I don't see him making less than $8.5-9 million.
Mm-hmm.
He could possibly hit that $10 million mark, which I think is a mistake. He's a playoff guy. He's not really Bubba, burn the jersey.
Yeah, already get a following for that, man.
I'm telling you, I'm this close. I got a nice Potvin jersey ready to go up. Anyways, where was I going? Oh yeah, the Florida Panthers have already stated that they want to bring Sam Bennett back. They've already voiced their interest in bringing Brad Marchand back. Obviously, Marchand will accumulate, would have to take a huge pay cut to remain a Florida Panther for next season. But the one thing that stood out to me from their Stanley Cup win was when Sam Bennett was being interviewed on the ice, and he said, we basically do everything together. We're just a big family. When we're not at the rink, we're always together. And maybe easier to do in Florida throughout the year. Maybe Toronto with the snow and whatever, it's a little bit tougher to do for players. But you remember going back to when Ryan O'Reilly left the Leafs, and he said there's a cultural issue, and he kind of backpedaled a little bit when they asked him about it the following season. But it does make me wonder if it's a little cliquey in the room, and good teams, the teams that end up winning, one, they're tax-free states, but also they tend to have that closeness,
camaraderie,
that brotherhood, that camaraderie, that family-like kind of attention to detail with each other. And they're always together. They're doing things together. They're not going on separate trips, just groups together, right? Like it's a unified front, and they know what they're going into battle for every game, regardless of regular season, regardless of the playoffs. They know what they're doing. I feel like the Maple Leafs aren't like that, but is that something that a Brad Marchand could bring to the Maple Leafs?
Oh, 100%. I mean, if there's one, okay, whether you like it, I mean, we've talked about his on-ice antics. We absolutely hate it. He's kind of toned it down, but he's still that little pest, that little rat that we all come to know and see him play as one. But in the locker room, I don't think you could get as good of a character guy as you can than Brad Marchand. I mean, you talk about the culture that the Bruins had before he left. I know there was a little bit of a shift, but when it was him, Bergeron, and Chara leading the way for that team, they set the tone and they set the culture for that team. it kind of felt like Marchand gelled in and mixed in very well with this team because he was coming in, he was cracking jokes and everything like that. And even during the playoffs too, like 5 or 6 of them are going to Dairy Queen before a game, and they're having blizzards and stuff like that. Like that is absolutely fun. That's like the not necessarily laid back mentality that you want, but you want them to have that little, relaxedness and calmness to their game. Not fully laid back like you would see with some other players, but this is what you wanted to see. I think that he could kind of get everyone out of their shell. I thought maybe they probably got that or tried to get that sense with Ryan Reeves, where maybe he was more laid back in the room, but it kind of feels like Marchand can get people out of their shell a little bit more. I mean, you already have a good personality in Nylander. He's that kind of like Matthew Tkachuk guy where he'll just say whatever he wants and he can at least back it up kind of thing. Marchand is there to help guide some of these younger players. And even so, even if a guy like Easton Cowan's coming in, who would you rather have him kind of shadow as a veteran, Mitch Marner right now or Brad Marchand? If anything, I'm probably going with Brad Marchand because if Marner's already out the door, who cares? Marchand's coming in. That's a good character guy. That's a guy that you want because he's got the chips. He's got not necessarily the like individual accolades. And yeah, his production may have gone down, but this is a guy that'll do anything that it'll take to win. He'll play wherever he needs to play in the lineup. He won't argue. He won't complain. He will go out there and just do his own thing. And that's the kind of guy that you need. And I think that, we hear Berube talk about the character of guys like Knies, guys like Matthews and Nylander and everything, like where he's just like, I don't even want to talk to Willie. You just let him do his own thing because it seems to work. Matthews, he's glowing about his character and his leadership as his first year as a captain. Knies has kind of that, like, he not necessarily called him out, but he said, he's not where he needed to be. And right when he said that, that's when Knies knew that, what, I got to pick it up. So when you have guys that on the team, the coach and everything like that, they're on the same page. They want that accountability. They want everyone to step it up. That's what you want to see. And I think Marchand is definitely going to be that guy that can help boost and elevate that locker room to not so much be, clicky with sort of like, a group of 5 or 6 here, a group of 5 or 6 there. Everyone's coming together. And I think he's a guy that you could really wrap that around and bring in to elevate that kind of like you mentioned, elevate that camaraderie, elevate the locker room to make sure that everyone's on the same page and they're all fighting for each other on the ice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he's a guy that's going to go in there and he doesn't mind chirping these guys and kind of giving them shit every once in a while to hold them accountable. And he's been there. He's been around the Krejcis. He's been around the Bergeron's. He's been around the Chars. He's been around like
Krejci as well. Thank you.
Yeah, he's been around those guys, right? And he's been in winning locker rooms for essentially the entirety of his career. He knows what it's like to get to the next level and be a champion and push these guys. I think the issue is going to be, I think there's going to be an overpayment by Toronto if he comes to Toronto, and I think there needs to be. We go back.
I would have no problem with that.
Yeah, so we go back to this whole idea of the tax-free state, and unfortunately Toronto is going to have to pay a little bit more to get him there. Patty brings up a great point. Marchand for 6 in Florida, 8 in Toronto.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Honestly, if
but that's
Florida
how it works.
To keep him, if Florida wants to keep him, though, I think they're going to have to go even below that. I think they're going to have to go in the 4.5 range.
I don't think he'll do that.
I don't think he'll do that either. But I think that's where they're going to have to go. And knowing that they've got some guys that are coming up that they're going to have to sign. They've got, Mackie Samoskevich that's going to be coming up on a contract in the next 2 years. They need to still build that cupboard back up as well. Anton Lundell is another guy that I think about, and he's very.
I think he's going to get paid very handsomely.
Yeah, he's very much like an Ivan Barbashev, right? Where he's got a little bit of all those intangibles. He plays with an edge. So I think if Marchand wants to stay in Florida, it's going to be a massive pay cut. I think Toronto would be able to kind of sucker him out for like in the 7.5 range. And given his age, I think he'd be willing to do that if they sign him to like a 2-3 year deal. Allow him to know that he's got that kind of comfort over the next few years to really kind of slow things down and ease into the back nine of his I guess let's say 17 and 18 of his career.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be an overpayment. It'll all depend on what the Leafs are willing to put out there. I mean, we talked about Taves last week. Seems like it's a Colorado Winnipeg decision at this point for Jonathan Taves. Again, like I said, with him it'd be more of a professional tryout and see where it goes, an invite to camp.
Interesting that it's Colorado as one of those teams because, you already signed Brock Nelson and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of feels like Charlie Coyle kind of feels like an afterthought right now and you acquired to get him. So
Yeah.
wonder what's going to happen there. Are you going to try and move on from him as well if Taves does have a good camp?
Honestly, I can't see him not going to Winnipeg. Like, why wouldn't you want to go home?
That's why.
It makes a lot more sense. But yeah,
I also
Patty.
wonder one thing with Marchand too, that I wonder if they try to go that Chris Tanev route where maybe you add in an extra year to try and bring down that AAV, because it kind of feels like, I know he's getting up there in age. I know you don't want to pay close to $6, $7, $8 million for a guy like that. Kind of feels like the whole Patrick Marleau thing, but Patrick Marleau was already on a massive decline in his career at that point. Marchand's still good at least for anywhere between 50 and 60 consistently. So I feel like if you try to give him another year, if he's able to, then you could probably work something out and try and lower that AAV. Kind of like the Chris Tanev thing. I don't know exactly if that's in the cards, but it's just one thing to consider.
Patty says teams that can afford a luxury tax should be able to apply it to the leagues with the league's consent. We've been saying this for a long time.
Get that luxury
now.
tax, yeah.
Get a luxury tax in. It doesn't have to be a major thing. Like you can still have like a little bit of a larger hard cap, but have like kind of like that higher ceiling where if you go over and stay within that hard cap, that there is a luxury tax that's applied to your team. It would give the advantage to teams like Toronto, like Montreal, like New York, like Chicago that are in larger markets and that bring in
Boston
a lot of revenue, and Boston, teams that bring in a lot of revenue for the NHL. But with Gary with Gary at the helm, I don't see that happening anytime soon. The Leafs. Let's be honest, the Leafs keep the lights on for the NHL sometimes at that head office, but they seem to get the brunt of a lot of things. Anyways. I think Marchand would be a great ad. Obviously, I'd love to get Sam Bennett. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I tweeted out right after they won the Cup that Sam Bennett was staying in Florida. After he said what he said, there's not a chance he's going anywhere. There's not a chance he's going anywhere. Like, I think he would even take a.
I feel the same way.
Stay. Yeah. But Gary needs to go. Yeah, he's been off.
I wonder when his retirement's going to happen. Because I hope that retirement happens sooner than later.
Yeah, they're saying Bill Daly's not interested in taking over either, so it'd be interesting to see a new face in the office and who would take over. But that's a conversation for when the time comes. But anyways, that's all I got for Leafs talk. It's going to be a quicker episode this week. We still got a little bit of league news, but before we do, just a quick word from the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook, the fastest game on ice. Just hit another gear. Welcome to the Stanley Cup Final, where legends are made and every shift could turn the tide. And now the DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, you can take every slap shot, breakaway, and overtime thriller to the next level. New to betting on the Stanley Cup Final? You're in for an exciting time. Getting started is a breeze. Fire up the DraftKings Sportsbook app, pick your team to win, lock in your wager, and you're off to the races. It's fast, simple, and puts you right in the middle of the action. Right now, you can take a futures out on next year's Stanley Cup winner. Believe it or not, the Carolina Hurricanes are the favorite to kick off the summer. Here's the kicker. New customers who bet just $5 will score $300 in bonus bets if their wager hits. That's right, turn $5 into a Stanley Cup final payout. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code THPN. That's code THPN to unlock $300 in bonus bets when your $5 bet wins. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bet must win to receive reward. Minimum minus 500 odds required. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Copyright 2025 NHL. Yeah, I know. I found the favorite Carolina to be an odd one, but maybe they know something that we don't. Maybe Mitch is going to Carolina, and that's what's coming of it. But anyways, I'm not laying a futures down yet. Down yet.
But let's get to September 1st.
That's right. Voices of the fans. I say raise the salary cap, but eliminate no movement trade clauses. Unfortunately, you'll never get that from the Players Association. The players want that stability. That gives
you could easily say
to
that
the players and cripples teams. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Here's the thing: you don't want the NHL to turn into the NBA, where you create these super teams and you have,
Luka Doncic going for nothing.
Yeah, like that's not what you want. At the same time, if you want to lock out, then bring that to the Players Association, because that it's unfortunately never going to fly. It's never going to fly.
I understand the stability, and I totally get it. You're not going to get rid of that, but at the same time, if you're a team too, you could easily just say, "Yeah, we're not moving him regardless, whether he has a no move or not." Yeah. But I do agree that's one thing you don't want, because the players want their stability. It's well within their right that if they want to stay there, they definitely could stay. I mean, again, Mitch Marner, perfect example. Well within his right to ask for one, well within his right not to waive it. It is what it is, and that's totally fair.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, at the same time, like if you don't want them, your team, your GM shouldn't be handing them out either. And I think that goes back to Dubas again. Dubas fucked around with this team way too much. But anyways, Bubba,
he galaxy brains so much, but we're
yeah. Bubba says Wayne Gretzky should run the NHL. Who? Sorry, I don't recognize that name. The Panthers are a super team due to unfair playing field. The Panthers were also shit for so many years. Like, I mean, they had a guy in Bill Zito who came in and made the right moves that offered up opportunities and got the players that he needed to get, and he built a team around that. And is there some unfair advantage with the tax-free state? Yeah, but I mean,
let's not discredit Bill Zito. He's a smart hockey mind too, because of the fact that look at the team he had when someone posted a screenshot of the team when Zito came in, and it was absolutely just wow. Yeah. It wasn't okay. It was pretty bad, but it wasn't bad in the sense that it was like Chicago level, San Jose level, but it was pretty bad in that essence. And he brought in Kachuk, he brought in Reinhardt, he gave up assets to make this team competitive, and he took advantage of kind of, players that had no experience, but he saw their upside and potential. That's what you need to do constantly.
Yeah, he took players that other teams were outcasting because they weren't ready to be patient with them. Like a Sam Reinhart. Yeah. Imagine if the Buffalo Sabres had held on to Jack Eichel, Sam Reinhart, and let Eichel get the back surgery. Like that, things could have been so different for Buffalo. Like this team should be the laughing stock, and realistically are the laughing stock, because they do it to themselves. They've done it to themselves for the past 15 years. Like it's unbelievable. Did you boys see Paulina Gretzky and DJ Rock in Panther jerseys during? I honestly didn't. I didn't
either. Yeah.
I think DJ spends most of his time down in Florida with the golf and everything, but I could be wrong. But maybe he's a big Panthers fan, or maybe the league's paying Gretzky's to wear. Who knows? All rumor mill. I respect Zito, but you fight for those inches. Absolutely, you do, Patty. Imagine the Leafs could get Marchand for 6. If the Leafs can get Marchand for 6, I'm signing him to 5 years.
Perfect world. Perfect
Yeah,
world.
I'm signing him
Yeah.
to 5 years. Okay, let's close it out with a little bit of league news. Zetterlund was acquired by the Ottawa Senators at the deadline. He just signed a 4-year contract. I believe it was at $4.5 million.
Mhm.
You
That's a good
mentioned,
contract.
you mentioned Duchesne as well. He re-signed in Dallas. That's a great contract for him, and I think the Dallas Stars love it having him there. He seemed to revitalize his career there this past season, as well as
I also
Trent Frederick.
wonder if I wonder if that Duchesne contract also serves as a precursor for Tavares. Because I know that he may
Absolutely,
want a little bit more, but let's face it, Duchesne is still up there in age.
yeah.
Kind of the same mill in terms of like Tavares, where they haven't won anything. Maybe you still take a little bit less, but
Tavares' point per game was a little bit higher,
a
but
little bit higher. Yeah,
still,
you could
I
argue that
mean,
absolutely.
you want to stay in Toronto. I think you take what you get, but
Yeah,
um, yeah, and then finally Trent Frederick we mentioned as well. He's re-signing with Edmonton. I think us as well as all the Oilers fans are kind of up in arms on that one. He didn't really offer much since coming over. Again, he was injured and the team just didn't seem to play him in the right situations. But um, to the okay, I'm gonna take a look at this real quick. Just sent a picture of Paulina Gretzky and DJ in Florida. Oh, I get it. Because not gonna lie, I was pissed because realistically he should have been wearing an Edmonton Oilers jersey. Having
oh yeah.
Gretzky, I get what you're saying. Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
now that kind
Wow,
of
completely missed the boat on that one.
that
Completely
went
missed the
over our
boat.
heads. That went over our heads a bit. Yeah, it does seem like a little bit of a slap in the face. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
getting down with the Chuck boys, maybe. Who knows? Who knows? Hitting the course with the Chucks, and they gotta wear what they wear. Wow, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, she
Didn't
was. I
even
believe she was born in Edmonton. Yeah,
didn't even make that connection.
Jesus. Anyways, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's gonna. I don't have to think about that one for a little bit. Um, we touched on the Panthers being back-to-back champions.
Mhm.
Yeah, pretty incredible run. Again, if you, whether
Absolute
it,
dominance.
if you consider
That's
them a
it.
dynasty, I think in a cap era, I think three straight trips to the Stanley Cup final, three within 4 years. I think that's got to be considered. I mean, Corey Perry himself is a dynasty at that point. Like he's five of the last six Stanley Cups, and he's lost them all. So,
Yeah.
I saw a great photo today on the Twitterverse of him with the Thanos's what's the what's the
Oh, the Infinity
Thanos's
Gauntlet.
the Infinity Gauntlet, and it had like all the
One
teams
one
that he
one
played for.
gem. One
Yeah, it
gem
had
for
all the
each
teams he
team.
had played for that he yeah, it was actually pretty incredible. It was a great photo.
I want to
Anyways,
just bring up one final thing about the Stanley Cup champs because let's face it, I mean, they were an absolute beast or whatever, right? Florida was absolutely dominant. I think one of the best comments was Hazy B from TSN. He was just like, "Did Bettman get 100% cheers? The league needs to team up on Florida. Enough is enough."
yeah,
I
yeah,
gotta feel
yeah,
like
that's right.
every
I
team
was
next
waiting for the
year.
booze. I was waiting for the booze.
I was about to say, I'm like, wait, something's missing here. Something doesn't seem right. There were no boos or jeers for Bettman because last year we actually heard it. This
Yeah.
year, I don't think I barely heard anything. It kind of felt like 75% cheers, 25% jeers.
Hey, has he made Florida great again? Bettman has
Probably.
made Florida great again. 4 Stanley Cups down
Yeah.
in the state of Florida in
Yeah.
the last 6 years or in the last 5 years, right?
Yeah. Because then you think
So
about it, Vegas and Colorado were in between those 2 years that
that was
basically
a
was that little lull.
that was a sad political joke too. Didn't come
No,
across very well.
yeah.
Anyways, last but not least, to add insult to injury, the league is investigating the Edmonton Oilers for their use of long-term IR with Evander Kane. Oh,
I just find this comical that even if it's a Canadian team that lost the Stanley Cup. Like you're gonna do that after everything that has happened over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years as well.
Man,
Come on.
I sent out the article that I wrote for the Hockey Writers back in 2016. We're 10
Yeah, I think you
years
sent that to
removed.
Frank Saravalli, right? Or
Yeah,
like quoted him.
we're 10 years removed. We're 10 years removed. And we talked about this with Patrick Kane when Chicago used it to get him on the IR and pick up pieces at the deadline.
Yeah,
We talked about this 10 years ago. Kucherov made a joke of it when he wore the shirt
18
$18
mil
million
over the cap.
over the cap. Um, what else? We had
Mark
Mark Stone
Stone.
in multiple seasons, ready for game one, like the Undertaker rising. And now Matthew
Everyone thought
Tkachuk.
that again this year.
Like, come on. Come on. This is getting stupid. And now that a Canadian team did it, now that Evander Kane was left on the IR, this is complete and utter bullshit. The Edmonton Oilers lost. Let them lose in peace, man.
And if they won, who cares? Every other team has done it. If they're so worried about this and they're actually investigating a team about the abuse of LTIR, then take it out of the actual CBA. Take it out of the negotiations. Take it out or try to amend it that there's going to be a penalty for if you do that.
Hey, rumor mill, Mark Stone hasn't actually played a regular season since he came into the league. He only plays playoff games. Oh my God. Insane. Yeah, Patty Bettman wore a Panthers jersey to a Leafs game in the playoffs. Oh, this chat's actually getting pretty incredible. Anyways,
great comments, but also a lot of trolling in here. So
there's a lot. I love it. I love it.
A lot of jabs being thrown today.
God, it's, you know what? When Florida wins 2 in a row, that's what happens. When Florida wins 4 out of 5, that's what happens.
The whole league and NHL fan base is going like, Hannibal Lecter right now.
That's right.
Basically,
that's right.
Go on full on attack mode.
That's right. Anyways, that's all we got for this episode 201. As we've mentioned in the past, we will be going all summer long with a little break in, usually August. We take a little break before we kick it off again. Outside of that, it's been a hell of a season, a hell of a ride. Congratulations to the Florida Panthers and their fans as they take home the Stanley Cup once again. Alexander Barkov, an absolute beauty, going door to door at 5 a.m. to his neighbors to show off the Stanley Cup. That's pretty incredible.
That's absolutely cool. Imagine just getting that wake-up call from Barkov with the Stanley Cup at your door.
You see him on the one video, he's just ringing the doorbell like 15
like spamming
times.
it, yeah.
Anyways, until next week, episode 202. That's it for us here at 6 is 6. Thanks for all the interactions, boys. We'll see you next week for episode 202. Until then, here's Alex Hobson with 25.